We also have approval ratings for the mayor and city council. If we can get them up in a second, this is from that same poll I mentioned earlier. The bottom line, the one in white, is negative. So mayor, 37% of people asked, 600 voters, I believe 300 in the city of Portland, this is that measure, 300, saying no, I'm not approving of Keith Wilson. But 62%, overwhelmingly, 62% of those polled, these 300 Portlanders, saying, I'm not a fan of what's going on with city council, and they're 2 years in. Rebecca, I'm sorry, Sierra, I know you've worked with, I think, Councilor Candace Avalos in the past before she was on council, but you also have some thoughts on how they're functioning as a body, I guess, 2 years in. What do you think?
Yeah, I don't think that the council and the mayor are out of touch with voters. I think they're in touch with this voter and this voter and this voter, but they're not seeing the big picture enough. And so, you know, if someone comments on their Instagram, then that's their new issue of the day. And we're not seeing enough like big picture policy. They're getting in the weeds on too many things. And what they're out of touch with is expertise in some of the things that they're creating policy on. I've worked a lot with different city bureaus, different city leaders who are experts at what they do: transportation, housing, environment, and they know how to run their bureaus in that part of the city. The councilors and the mayor need to focus on policy and make sure Portland's bouncing back, because we are in trouble.
Do you think it's the big things they need to focus on, Congressman? I mean, we keep coming back to this. It's public safety, it's roads, it's making sure things sort of function. I mean, every time I see a truck going by that says Portland, the city that works, I have some thoughts. I'll keep them to myself because they're personal thoughts, right? But we're 2 years into this new kind of system. This is your bread and butter of what you do now at Portland State. So what are you seeing and what needs to happen?
Well, I think there is a very steep learning curve. If you look at the 12 people on the city council, I think there are only 3 with prior government experience. You have the individual districts with 3 members per district. There isn't the accountability. Who is responsible? There was a front page story in the Oregonian about some poor guy who was caught in bureaucratic hell and had difficulty getting somebody to connect. But there are 3 different members for
because
that
it's an
district.
overlay instead of 12 districts, and you know who to go to.
And a single person in charge. I think there are a number of things that are improving. I think they are feeling their way. Nobody in the world has the system of government. I had some questions.
Portland kind of has to be the first with some of these things, right? We always have to be original in the first and
be Oregon
and work it out, right? Exactly.
I would have hoped that the people who designed it could figure out that it would be a good idea to have an odd number of city council people rather than ties.
Good point.
And not
or the mayor.
and not having the mayor have the ability to break a tie. There are some sort of fundamental things here that are going to take some getting used to. But I think they're working hard. I think there is some sign of improvement, but it's been a steep learning curve.
I agree. I have to weigh in here because I am so tired of hearing, well, this is new and it's so hard. If I were a year and a half into my job and I couldn't do my job, I would not have the job anymore.
Yeah,
and so
you get like 15 minutes.
Yeah, exactly. And these people had training behind the scenes before they started in January of last year. They didn't take it.
So the time has passed, you said. You're no
yeah.
longer new.
Look, and if
you're
you're
now
not ready,
incumbent. It's time to go. I got to bring in Blair here because she sits in so many council meetings and listens to it in the back and forth and the public comment and you know, just speak to me, like what actually gets done and what doesn't get done. Is the panel being too hard on city council?
I really don't think they are. I think this is the sentiment that many Portlanders have of Portland City Council. One thing I will add, a perfect example of what we're talking about, is that it took some 13 rounds of voting and hours upon hours of meeting to just pick a council president, when the council president's main duty is just to set the agenda for council meetings. And like that took a lot of arguing and harsh words on the diet.
This was this past year, right? With Jamie Dunphy,
yeah,
who didn't even want the job, right?
Exactly.
But you don't say you don't want the
Right, he
job.
said it
You're in
loud.
public
Because if
service.
you do, you get
yeah,
unelected.
you take the
I mean,
job and have points about it.
Right.
Let's be honest, this has nothing to do with who the actual counselors are, in my opinion. This is an infrastructure problem. This
So the
is
system.
This is a system where we said, we have a short-term reaction, we have a knee-jerk response, we have a 7-word headline that's going to make this look good. So we're going to do this policy problem or try to fix this way that we do elections without solving it all the way. So good people who really want to do well for Portland are put into a mess of a government system that we all said sounded good and we'll just figure it out. Well, Oregon's been doing that for decades, right? And now we're seeing that like some of the sound good, set up a task force, cut the ribbons. They don't work anymore. We need 4 years, not 6 months.
Blair, just
But
quickly.
I will say the point of this new government structure, right, let's not forget, is so that other people, everyone in Portland is represented. That's why they're overseeing districts, areas of Portland, instead of overseeing specific bureaus.
And do you think that's working?
I
Do you think there's more
it's
representation?
working because they are meeting with the community. They're out holding district meetings. People show up to those district meetings. I just went to one this week and it was packed. And they're on social media engaging with Portlanders. So I do feel like Portlanders have more of a voice on this council, but then there's the clashing of can they all get on the same page and reach a majority and put the posturing aside, put the trying to make a name for themselves aside, and
Exactly.
and
Create a structure
make
that encourages them
meaningful
to be
change.
successful.
Just really quick here, I just want to take these two. I'm not going to ask you to grade. Just briefly, and then I want to just move on to some quick results here. Grade for mayor and city council in your view right now, Sierra and Congressman, if you want to go there. What do you think?
What do you think, Congressman?
Well, I think Mayor Wilson gets credit for delivering on what he said he was going to do.
Okay.
He's earnest and out there. I think it's incomplete for the council for the reasons that we mentioned. And I think it's part of it is structural, as I mentioned.
Sierra?
Council incomplete, absolutely. I don't think I could put the entire council in a box, but in terms of performance and like keeping it moving, yeah, we're at a C level. I think for the mayor being, cheer captain for Portland, an A. Like he's found his stride, meeting with people, shaking hands. But when it comes to listening to the experts, staying on message, understanding the complexity of the issues facing us right now, and communicating out in a consistent way about what's happening, I'd really like to see him do better.
Okay, so an incomplete, but also a sort of average middling grade at this point.
Middling, that's,
Middling.
I'll give an A
All
for
right.
not reactive, and I'll give an A for non-rhetoric driven approach to running the city of Portland. Like it might be taking a little bit to see some solutions and answers, but I'm also not getting angry, agitated headlines all the time.
But you also
about
don't live in
responses.
Portland, right? You live in Washington County,
Correct.
Tigard, so
Yeah.
there's
That is
Yeah, but I
noteworthy.
see all of it. Yeah, no, I mean, I may not vote for him, but as a Metro voter
You
and
watch
a
it all
Metro
happen.
taxpayer and someone who drives into the city, it matters.